I'm joined today by Tom Harding, co-founder of Nemo, which describes itself as a new age travel agency on a mission to simplify bespoke trip planning. Hi Tom, thanks for joining me today.
Hi Jessica, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So it's an interesting one. Tell us a bit more about Nemo and how you guys are different to any other travel agency out there.
So we are, as you quite rightly introduced, we see ourselves as a kind of new era travel agency. Both James and I, who I co-founded with in September 2019, used to work for a bespoke travel operator, and my actual background before that was in lodge management out in Africa, so managing safari lodges. And we basically started Nemo to try and solve the client frustrations that we've spotted over the years, namely trying to hit a slightly younger demographic than necessarily bespoke travel is associated with. So looking at kind of late 20s, 30s, early 40s, professionals who are cash rich and time poor. So our goal is to combine our expertise with a kind of tech first approach to slightly reshape the bespoke travel planning space. I think the traditional travel agency model, if you go back to a high street in its most simple form, I think everyone can, even those who are predominantly reliant on that 6 months ago now are moving online. When we set out before COVID, I think we were aware that shift was happening, and so it's basically a digital first travel agency. I think the big thing that we've learned in the last 12 months with that is the importance of keeping expertise with the tech, so them working side by side. And I think that's the balance we're constantly trying to strike, which is, people are used to purchasing online, but at the same time, has expert advice ever been more important? So it's just trying to find that sweet spot in the middle between essentially the OTAs like booking.com and a traditional high street travel agency, which, potentially aren't going to be around anymore. So yeah, trying to open up a space between the two really is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. And for agents that perhaps are not so tech savvy, what would you recommend in terms of user friendliness on the website? What is important for potential clients who are looking to book trips in the next 6 months to a year and beyond? What are those fundamental elements that they need on a website?
I think having clear call to actions is quite important, and actually having more modern call to actions than just a telephone number or an email address. I mean, we've introduced a WhatsApp button, which sounds so simple, but given how much people browse on their phones, if your website's mobile friendly, I think that's also kind of like a must have at the moment. But simply a WhatsApp icon that's linked directly to that is we're seeing it as a much more, particularly for a slightly younger demographic, and by younger I mean 28 to 40, so kind of definitely not kind of students, but I mean people who are in the professional category. I think they're very almost prefer using something like WhatsApp, or a kind of we've even used Instagram and used kind of direct messages in Instagram over emails. And I think it was another big thing when we set Nemo up before COVID. This is as well, trying to cut out that back and forth, the email tennis, if you want, between agents and clients. That's another big thing we're trying to break down. Like, they're not clients, they're travelers, and being a bit more, treat them like your best friend, basically, is what we're kind of setting out to try and do. Rather than, I think people would rather see a nice, clear, concise message than a huge long essay in their inbox, and particularly at the moment when we're all sat at home and different means, being a bit more clever with different means of communication, I guess, has helped us.
And is that, using Instagram and using WhatsApp, has that allowed you to keep connected to people that are going to be booking travel with you? Have you written messages or just that communication going?
Instagram massively in the past 9 months. Like, to be honest, before the pandemic, because it's just James and I, we're still a two-man band, which I'm sure loads of agents out there quite independently run and struggle to kind of, I guess, manage everything at the same time. You've got email, social media. accounts, all these different elements of your business. I mean, I guess when the pandemic hit, everything shut down. So social was the only way for us really to communicate with a new audience and our current audience. So we've just continued that throughout, and it's been so helpful. And we've I'd say over 75% of our leads are now come from social. So that's the shift from our side.
And what are you finding people are looking for in a post-pandemic world? What are their aspirations, dreams? Where do they want to be traveling? What kind of holidays are they looking for? Is it adventure? Is it the bucket list trip, or is it more just I want to lie on a beach and get some sun?
I think we'd love to think that everyone's looking for that once in a lifetime, meaningful, amazing 3-week adventure, but I actually think people just want to get away. And I think we're going to have this year, 2021, I think is still going to be a year of, I just want to go on holiday. So quite fly and flop style places. And we're quite looking forward to the summer, obviously, in terms of promoting cool off the beaten track places within Europe, Puglia or kind of mainland Greece, the Greek islands. As said, we'd love more than anyone to start pushing India, South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, wherever. Long haul, exciting destinations, but I still feel psychologically they feel a long way away. So I mean, we're focusing a bit closer to home, and even closer to home staycations, which again we've pivoted and moved into that in the last 9 months, which has been really helpful for us as well, just offering what people actually want and can do.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about the recent announcement that the tests upon entry scheme that the government have implemented? And have you been getting a few more inquiries since the announcement of the vaccine? Is that consumer confidence returning? Yeah, tell us a bit more about that.
So with the first question on the testing, I think long term it's probably a good thing, and I think it should have been in place before, because it's just in line with the rest of Europe and what other countries are doing. I think everyone found it a bit odd that it wasn't in place before, and whether it can work alongside the quarantine, and if it needs to work alongside the quarantine. I actually think the quarantine is the bigger, puts people off more, because again, like you're being told you have to stay indoors for, even if it's 5 days, it's going to put lots of people off traveling. And yeah, so hopefully after Easter, this is my hope anyway. I've read a few things that hopefully the quarantine can start to be reduced and it becomes more reliant on the test. And at the end of the market that we operate, and I imagine lots of your readers operate, which is a slightly higher end, bespoke end of the market, hotels and partners on the ground are really good at sourcing negative tests, so it's less of a concern for our travelers. We've even gone as far as to say this week that we'd quite happily help pay for these tests to get people traveling. So possibly not the one to get them out there, but if they're concerned about getting their test when they're in the Maldives, we'll speak to the hotel in advance, arrange payment in advance, so they don't even have to think about it when they're away. And we've actually had another traveller who's going to Namibia in the next 6 months who's concerned about it, and we've already confirmed that he can get a test to his safari lodge in Etosha. So at the higher end of the market, things can happen with that test. I can totally see how at the mass market level, it's massively off-putting to travel. If you have to, let's say you're in southern Spain in a fairly busy touristy area, there's big queues to get the test. It'll just be a nightmare really. So I think kind of something that I guess we've been saying since the start, I think the bespoke higher end of the market is in a much better place to recover than the more mass end of the market. And this kind of furthers that. The second question was about
the vaccine. Have you seen
vaccine,
a peak in interest now that people are thinking, okay, well, once I get this vaccine, the first thing I want to do is book a trip?
We saw a peak from the week that we had. So the Oxford vaccine was approved, and I think it was the 28th, and then on the 5th, it was the 3rd or the 5th that they announced the new lockdown. So we had a week of good inquiries, and then they went away.
It comes in waves, doesn't it?
we had a week of happy days, but it was great. Even in that week, we had, let's just say, 8 great inquiries for later in the year. I think people got a lot more confident with longer haul travel from that. We had quite a few inquiries for trips in October, November, safari style trips. So I think it gave people a bit of confidence. But it's really tricky after the latest lockdown. It's going to take, I think, a couple more weeks for things to come back, and well, for inquiries to start coming. So we're not really looking for them, to be honest, at the moment. Just because of the language in the press, it's very tricky to cut through that, and actually you're in danger, I think, of becoming too salesy. I mean, I saw an advert for one of the big low-cost airlines on the TV, and it actually didn't make sense. Like at the current time, it's almost insensitive. I spoke to one of our booking partners today, and they're actually quite. This is like a booking partner for kind of high-end hotels or boutique hotels around Europe, and they're actually concerned about the demand for let's say peak season in Europe, because I think it's just it'll be a mad scramble to try and find rooms in the kind of smaller boutique hotels in Europe. So I mean, on that note, we're looking to encourage people to go a bit out of season to try and be a bit clever with, instead of heading to Greece in early September like everybody else, try and, it's still nice and warm in October, it's still going to be great, or even May if possible. So yeah, trying to encourage your travelers to be a bit off season, basically pushing that a bit to avoid. So I think availability will be a bit of a scrum if things open up this summer.
Okay, and let's talk about the sustainability aspect of your business, because I understand it's quite important to you guys. Are you seeing a lot of travellers looking for, local experiences, looking to stay in sustainable accommodation, offsetting their carbon footprint and those sort of things?
Yeah, so our mission when we set everything up was to kind of lead with actions rather than words. I guess a lot of travel companies talk about their sustainability quite a bit, and we just want to have tangible reasons, tangible things that travelers can be proud of when they go away with Nemo. So for every trip, we plant a tree for every traveler as soon as the booking's made. On their birthday, we plant another tree for them. So small things that help. And then we also give 1% of all of our revenues to a charity called Hello World. Hello World are a charity which they focus on education for marginalized communities in places like Nepal and Uganda. And they're just the reason we chose them was because they're not a huge charity. They're not a massive kind of organization. They're run by this amazing woman called Katrin, and we can physically see that every year the cash or the revenue that not we give them, that travelers give them, is going to, directly into helping these communities. So I think, yeah, that's part of that. That's our mission with it, is to actually have tangible things that we can be proud of, rather than just making sweeping statements, which I think is quite easy to do. One of the sweeping statements that lots of companies make, that we do as well, to be fair, is, picking boutique, slightly higher end sustainable hotels is kind of a bit of a given really at that end of the market that we operate. So naturally, by not looking to mass market chains, it's helpful in the long term.
And what would you say influences you in terms of assisting someone with, recommending where they should go? Is it personal experience? Are you looking for these sustainability credentials or local experiences? Tell me how you kind of navigate that.
I think that's massive, what you mentioned at the end there, in terms of kind of connecting them to places. Meaningful travel, I think, is big, and a big part of what our demographic look for. They don't just want to go more often, even if they do want to go and lie on the beach, they'd like to lie on the beach at a hotel that, employs local staff, or kind of, has an amazing chef with local produce. There's a lot more than just kind of, people go to booking.com if they want to just tap into a simple hotel. We want to tell stories with every trip, and then want our travelers to tell a story when they get back. So, yeah, I think another thing that we've learned massively in the last 9 months is communicating these stories, and again, that's where social comes in handy. You can kind of use that as a tool to, not just put up an amazing photo of a beach, explain that hotel, go into a bit more detail, and it's just kind of speaking the narrative
in those experiences. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But I mean, another thing, like we're really focused, even with the most simple of bookings. So even if it's 2 nights in the Cotswolds, at the moment anyway, we're so focused on matching that person to the perfect hotel for them and taking our time when doing it. So at the moment it's quite manual, but long term we'd like to build the tech in that kind of people can, Nemo as a platform has our expertise and questions in to understand the traveller and suggest the right things for them, based on all sorts of different criteria. So it's not as simple as just how much do you want to spend a night. It's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, it's personalised, as you said, bespoke travel.
This is it, but that's it. And like personalised bespoke travel, which has been around a long time, but our goal is to slightly lower that barrier to entry and make it a bit simpler. So, as I say, if you want to go away for 2 nights, why shouldn't you have that level of expertise? And I think tech makes that possible because you can cut down the hours of manpower, basically.
Mm-hmm. And finally, let's end on a positive note. Where are you most looking forward to traveling when you are allowed to do so?
Almost definitely. It's a tricky one, but I think the first thing that always comes to mind is Masai Mara, Kenya, because I used to live and work out there for a couple of years at this amazing lodge called Saruni Wild, which is right in the middle of everything really. And I slept in this kind of small tent, and that's like, when I want to kind of have that wanderlust dreaming moment, I kind of switch off and kind of imagine being there and the sounds and noises and obviously doing amazing safari stuff. So yeah, that's where I kind of daydream of.
So the big 5 was on your doorstep then every day?
Too close at times, yeah, too close.
What was your most memorable experience of working there?
Quite a few fairly. I'm quite into my running, which you can imagine kind of doesn't really necessarily add up that well when you're in the middle of the Masai Mara. But occasionally I would grab one of the Askaris, the guards, and go for a kind of 5K jog around. Once we were off doing that, and thank God I had one of them with me, because we came across like a small herd of elephant, which really wasn't that far in the distance. And that moment of being on foot and having them 20 meters away is pretty memorable and amazing.
Wow. They can be quite aggressive as well if they want to be.
Can be. But when you're with the Maasai guides, you feel very safe and in control. He was very relaxed about it. I was kind of hiding behind him.
Oh, great. Well, let's hope that we can all have an experience. Well, maybe not as
maybe no running.
close.
I don't think I'm not gonna encourage our travellers to go running.
Not as close up as that, but maybe from a safe, far enough distance. There's definitely one on my bucket list anyway. Well, Tom, listen, thanks so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best with Nemo, and looking forward to watching it grow in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you very much for the time, Jessica. Really enjoyed it. Cheers.
Thanks. Take care.